Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Let's see if we can adjust the camera a little bit. There we go. It's been a little while since I've had a chance to talk with you guys, but it is really good to be back. I really do enjoy, one more time, there we go. I really do enjoy talking to the community, and sorry I had to go for a little bit, but I took a week off for health reasons. I went to Connecticut and actually had a super physical done. So, the Princeton Longevity Center, and they give you a nice 300-page printout of all kinds of things about you. So the long or the short is, after a full body CT scan, more blood than I thought I had, hands in places they shouldn't be. I am very healthy, calcium score of 0. The labs are all normal. Liver's looking good. Kidneys are looking good. No tumors anywhere. Nothing significant. So it looks like you're all going to have to deal with me for a long time, or at least until the next physical. So very glad that got that done. I still need to lose some weight. I went down from 235 pounds to about 205 pounds, which is pretty good for a year, and a lot more to go. Still have too much visceral fat and still have too much body fat content. Need to add about 10 to 15 pounds of lean mass. So I really just wanted to say I'm healthy, moving in the right direction, got a nutritionist, got a personal trainer, and a good health team working with me. So that's the story there. A lot of other little things have come up here and there, and I have some more stories to share, but I'll save those for later AMAs. Now, just a brief update on Cardano. This month, we are going to be launching the most significant update to Daedalus that we've done since the launch of Daedalus, and a lot of it in the back end in preparation for Shelley, but then a lot of usability feature improvements, some bug fixes, actually a lot of them. I think there's over 100 issues related to Daedalus, and the Daedalus team is super proud of what they're about to push out. They've been working on it for over 2.5 months. And really, it's a lot of great engineering. We're also going to be, some point this month or early next month, turning on the Ouroboros BFT upgrade to the network. And at that point, BFT will be running instead of the old Ouroboros Classic that Sarah Kell implemented. So that's the major August update. We're still pushing out usually weekly updates to the self-node testnet. And the network stack coming along really well on that. So hopefully sometime this month, we'll be able to make an announcement on that side. And the Haskell team just gave a very significant demo last week, Friday. I was out of the office, so I had to watch the video of the demo. But things are definitely moving along quite well for them. The Haskell wallet backend is also looking pretty good on the Cardano side. Lots of things to do there, but we're basically moving in the right direction. So I'm very happy, very proud of how quickly the team is moving. What's really exciting is that we now actually have all these different software teams, 5 to 7 people usually, and they're cutting releases all the time. And I've never really seen software development velocity like this. And so it's really cool to see things moving. Of course, I'm a very impatient man sometimes, and I'd like Shelley to be out today instead of however long it will take. But at least I have confidence that we'll get there, and we'll get there when in a reasonable time frame, not 10 years, but certainly significantly shorter than that. So quite the good work. Okay, so that's the story about Cardano. Nothing significant. David Esser and others will begin making updates at their due time. A lot of people are flying out here, Colorado, to come to the IoT office to discuss what's coming after Shelley. We've also had a lot of Gogan-related conversations. We're doing a very big hackathon up in Wyoming in September with the University of Wyoming. We'll be meeting with the governor, a lot of state officials. It's going to be quite a lot of fun, and probably a few hundred developers will be there. And it's a great opportunity to show off a lot of major enhancements we've made to Plutus. We've recently released the new Plutus book. If you go to Amazon and type in Plutus, you can see the book. The Udemy courses have gotten quite a bit of consumption. I think we're up to 5,000 or 10,000 students at this point, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback. So Plutus is definitely turning into a mature product, and it's going to take a little bit more time for it to get where it needs to go. But the team is highly motivated, and things are moving in the right direction. We're also making great progress with GHCJS. We're making great progress as well with our work in collaboration with Twig on Haskell to WebAssembly. So this will allow people to start taking some of the code we're writing and have it run in the web browser, and some of the code we're writing and have it run on a WebAssembly deployment. So we believe this is very important for long-term interoperability. The other good news is the way that we've constructed Plutus, the off-chain code will eventually be user choice. So you should be able to interact with Plutus code using JavaScript or Java or other languages. So as you're writing your smart contracts, which will inevitably be embedded in a larger application, usually involving a server, you should be able to do that using the language of your choice. So we'll leave that to Manuel Chakravarty and his team to kind of explain the details there and how these things are going to work. We've also begun a project to start examining the interoperability between Ethereum-style accounts and extended UTXO. And the hope there is that we can come up with a clever way that we can use Yella with Plutus. So Plutus can call a Yella contract, Yella can call a Plutus contract. So we'll make a statement later on about that, but we think that could be a very quick, beautiful way of getting Ethereum interoperability with Cardano in sometime during the Gogan era. In terms of the science side of things, science is looking pretty good. Ouroboros Skatseros and Ouroboros Hydra are both pretty far along, and our hope is to do a Eurocrypt submission, which would be in the month of September. Should that be possible, then we should also be able to do a public release of those two papers. Skatseros and Hydra are the last two papers, significant papers in the Ouroboros family, meaning that we would consider that research line complete. There may be some additional optimizations or other things we do, or we may rewrite the papers as we did the Ouroboros Classic paper to reflect a larger corpus of knowledge around the problem. But basically, we had solved all the issues, dealing with spikes of dishonest majority, efficient random number generation, being able to run in a BFT mode, Ouroboros with privacy, that's the Crypsinus line, being able to bootstrap without a checkpoint, being able to operate in a semi-synchronous model, and then finally sharding. This was an enormous body of work. It started in 2015. We've written almost a dozen papers. We've collaborated with probably 24 different scientists. It's gotten peer review at pretty much every major conference you can imagine that matters in the cryptographic world. And it's really satisfying to see that research line starting to come to a close, and for us to be able to then move on to even more interesting things, especially layer 2 stuff and zero knowledge stuff and so forth. So we're definitely doing some cool, interesting things for that. Yeah, and I'm aware the shirt is too big. I actually have new shirts. And this is one of my old shirts. I'm floating around the ranch today, so I figured I'd wear a shirt that didn't matter. But yeah, it was designed for a fat guy. And I'm not as fat as I used to be, which is a good thing, right? It means I'm going to live longer. So yeah. Yeah, life is good. You know, it's just really satisfying as hell to see software being written at such a great velocity, to see science being done properly, to see formal methods being done properly, and to see so many really brilliant people starting to work together and flow. It takes a long time for these things to happen, and it takes a lot of effort for these things to happen, and it never happens quite the way you anticipated or as smoothly as you'd like, regardless of how smart your people are, or how talented they are, because it's just human dynamics. And to see that it's all now starting to converge, and we actually now have a beautiful vision for a great product. We know how to kind of capstone everything, and the researchers are in sync with the formal methods, people in sync with the developers. That's pretty magical. And to see every month we're starting to get more and more releases, and people are really taking things seriously, and the community's wrapping around it and giving us issues and talking about things, is very satisfying as well. It always takes longer than you think it would take, and always harder than you think it would be. But I will remind everybody, we kind of just rewrote everything from scratch twice. And we studied the hardest problems in this entire space, and we did it with rigor. We hired great scientists, we hired great engineers, and we assumed nothing. And we worked really hard with these great scientists and these great engineers for a long period of time. 4 years is a huge chunk of my life. And the fact that we're now here, where there's certainty behind the vision, the product, the direction, and the code is coming out at a rapid pace, that's not going to slow down. And we're really happy about that. So it's a great victory as an engineering company, and it's an even greater victory, I think, for the space as a whole, because it leaves a blueprint for how projects should pursue these types of endeavors. And it also leaves a lot of papers for people to reference and understand the nature of certain problems, like proof of stake and things like side chains, and also the PL work that we've done. So there's a lot more to do. There's oracles that we got to figure out, and there's lots of options there. We have a guy working on Lightning, and we'll think about whether we want to do that or not. We have boatload of work we got to do with the Treasury. We know what to do, at least. Just we have to start doing it once we have this stuff set up. And obviously, we got to ship a lot of software to you guys now, because we're getting to that point where these things are where they need to be. And of course, lots of dApps need to be deployed on the system. So that's going to be the great end of 2019, 2020 challenge, is bridging that dApp gap. But we think we have a great philosophy for how to do that. And the hackathons have been overwhelmingly successful, whether we do them in Ethiopia, Mongolia, Israel, or now in Wyoming. We just meet a lot of incredibly interesting people and very passionate people. And it's not very hard to get 10,000 dApps or 100,000 dApps deployed on a platform if the platform is worth it. And given that we probably will beat everybody to scaling, because our solution is on paper going to probably come out September, and it's not going to be that hard to implement, and we have the theory down, I feel very good about our 2020 prospects. So that's my update. Now we get to have a wonderful conversation with you guys. So let's go ahead and see these things. And I'm not going to eat my shoe no matter what. We're going to find a way to get Shelley where it needs to be. Hello from Spain. Hola. ¿Cómo está? Do a reverse AMA and ask us questions. Yeah, actually, I think I will ask you guys some questions. And I would love Barca, the club, to come to Nepal. That would be a heck of a lot of fun. Unfortunately, my travel schedule is pretty tight. I'm going to be staying in Colorado for probably the next few months, with the notable exception of a few times where I fly out for specific things. But no more gallivanting around the world, going to 11 countries in 7 weeks or something like that. I've done that too much, and it's had a very bad impact on me. Got fat. And I have two paintings. One's a Waterhouse painting, and the other one is a Gustav Klimt painting. I really love them, and they mean very different things, and they're deeply personal to me. So I put them in my office because I spend the most time here, and every morning I look at them. And actually, my other painting is from Jean-Léon Gérôme, and that's Belicio Verco. And so that painting is basically of a gladiator, and he's looking towards the audience, trying to decide whether to kill the person or allow him to live. And that's not an anonymous mask. Actually, if you look up, I have a mask collection, and I collect many, many of them. Come on, you. There we go. So, hello from France. Au revoir. I would like to hear your opinion and comments about merging crypto projects. Recently, Vitalik suggested some sort of partnership between Ethereum and Bitcoin trash. Tell me how you really feel about Roger's work in order to improve scalability issue. This is the whole thing of my home is not complete, and I need some place to put all my stuff. And my next door neighbor's got a spare garage, and so I'm going to go put my stuff in his garage until we can figure it out type of deals. And that's basically what Vitalik is proposing. He has some concepts of basically how he's going to scale Ethereum. And remember, there's not just scalability in terms of processing power. So that's how many smart contracts you can process, but also data scalability. You need to actually store all that information somewhere. And then network, you need to be able to move all that information somewhere. So he has some ideas about how he's going to handle all of that. And they haven't implemented them, and it's going to take quite a bit of time for them to get there, because this is really hard stuff. And when you go from a replicated to a distributed system, so much more can go wrong. So in the interim, I guess he's just basically trying to store his junk in someone else's garage. And no one's really doing much with Bitcoin Cash. So they're just doing that. And I guess it's good for them. It gets them a little adoption. But at the end of the day, that's their business. We do things a little differently here. Favorite Floyd track? Well, the favorite album from Pink Floyd is Wish You Were Here. Wonderful. Poor Sid Barrett. Sad he got schizophrenia. Michael, I still have your letter. It's hanging in my living room. I really appreciate the letter. Thank you very much. It was a great gift. Just, Michael, you have to contact me differently. You can't do it over Twitter in public with 111,000 people. Please use some professionalism in that. And I am very busy these days, and so sometimes it takes me a little while to get back. I'd never trash a letter from Einstein. It's a very good question from Crypto Kool-Aid. Please explain how Cardano can be upgraded once it's launched, as it seems to be Ethereum's underlying issue. It's not just Ethereum's underlying issue. There's a very significant issue with all cryptocurrencies about what do you do once the train has left the station. So every now and then, you need to do things differently. You need to pivot, so the tracks have to go in a different direction. You need to replace wheels. You need to replace cabooses. There's all kinds of things that happen either because of security flaws or because of emergent technology, or perhaps you just have philosophical differences. You say, we thought A, but now B. And this is quite easy to do when you're a centralized company, or at least easier to do when you're a centralized company, because basically somebody just has the balls to say, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to change directions. Like, for example, Satya Nadella with Microsoft. So when he entered in, Ballmer's reign was open source is cancer. And Nadella says, open source is our strategy. We're going to open source .NET. We're going to release Office products on iOS and Android before we do Windows. We're going to start sharing information within the company. We're going to move to Git. Very, very different philosophy. And he wrote a great book. I think it was called Hit Refresh or something like that, explaining how he did it at such a huge organization, a $500 billion company, 500,000 people. That's a big cruise ship to change. So the problem is, even when you're God, so CEO, and you have total power and the consent of the board to go do something, it takes years to be able to move something like that. Now imagine a global scale protocol where there is no one who's God. It's just committees. There's groups of people. It's global governance at that point. So basically you do it the same way you do anything where you have disparate people. You have to have a collective action problem. You have one side, which is the polling consent side, and then one side, which is the incentives to really think about problems that impact the system. So these are actually different problems, and you can solve one without solving the other, but you have to solve both for the system to work very well. So the polling people and getting consent, the difficulty of that problem stems from who do you talk to? Do you talk to the people who hold the cryptocurrency? Do you talk to the people who provide the hash power? Do you talk to people providing infrastructure, the developers? And not everybody's created equally there. Everybody has kind of a different level of participation, a different level of care, a different utility in the system. So it's a very complicated democratic problem. And this is a larger political science problem of how governments decide. We'd like to be egalitarian and say everybody's equal and every vote counts equally, but that's how you end up getting Trumps and these types of things, or Clintons, depending upon your political persuasion. So we've written papers on liquid democracy, and we have a pretty good concept of a 1.0 system. And basically the process of upgrading there is the improvement proposal process. So we would write them, other people would write them, and then basically there would be a democratic process to go through to ratify whether those improvement proposals are legitimate or not. Now, there are cryptocurrencies like Dash and Monero and Tezos that have various levels of sophistication where you can vote on things, or at least kind of give some democratic consent to a particular idea of a direction to go in. And it's either protocol level enforced or implicitly enforced through the democratic consent. The other side of the problem is the incentive side. So even if you have a perfect system for perfect representation, what if only 10% of the system show up? That was the situation with the DAO hack. So with the DAO hack, they took a vote, and the vote was, let's go ahead and fork. And they said, okay, great. And we looked at the participation. It was like 8% or 9%. I can't remember the exact amount. I said, well, is this a representative sample of the entire community? Maybe. If you look at polling theory, if you look at how people do polls, you can actually sample, if you construct the sample correctly, a subset of the people, and within a margin of error, have a representative sample of the entire population. We do this for experiments all the time. We do this for many aspects of science. So it's not entirely unreasonable to say that a low participation with a margin of error would be sufficient to give you a sense that your system is right. But you'd like high participation. You like 50%, 60%, 70%. So then the question is, what do you do? Some systems say it's your civic duty. Some systems say you go to jail if you don't vote. I believe Australia does that. They actually have compulsory voting. Other systems, they pay you to vote, or they restrict privileges, like say you can't use the system if you don't vote. So that is a very hard problem. There's a lot of political theory there, and the best idea is to start slow. So you open up the tools, you flow them out, and you basically see where they go. And if they work and they have high participation, you do anything. If they don't work, then you conduct experiments and you try with different cohorts to incentivize them correctly. So this is going to be the great challenge of 2020 as we kind of move our way through the democratic side. Or the 2019 challenge is getting the rewrite done, Shelley out, Gogan out, smart contracts running. These are solved problems, and they're just engineering problems right now. And it's frustrating and it's slow and meticulous, but it's not like we're going to wake up and suddenly win a Turing Award because we've done something magical with the engineering. It's just good code. The 2020 challenge, one group works on sharding, and that's just getting Hydra deployed and layer 2 solutions deployed if we choose to deploy them. And then the other group is working exclusively on the treasury side of things and the voting side of things. And that's a much more difficult problem because it's interdisciplinary, it's economic, it's political theory, it's ideas. It's great to have Tezos around because we can kind of learn from some of the things that they're doing, but they're not the only game in town. There's dozens of people exploring these things. So, we've already begun literature review. We've already begun watching things, and we've already written several papers. And, we could certainly roll out a fairly simplistic solution, or we could go for something very elegant and grand. But that's a 2020 question, and it's something we'll tackle after Shelley and Gogan. Good question, though. And by the way, it's not bad to pay people to vote. Hi, Charles. You once said, whoever says IoT, AI on blockchain is fooling you. Can you elaborate why? If you look at IoT, generally speaking, you say, okay, I have lots of very weak sensors, and they're all over the damn place. For example, I recently had a very advanced security system installed in my home. And it has all these little sensors, glass break sensors, window sensors, door sensors, and they all kind of dial home to a device. And that device is collecting data all the time. I have motion sensors, and the motion sensors basically control whether the cameras come on or not. So within my own little home in my ranch, there's hundreds of little sensors taking thousands and thousands and thousands of readings very often. Now, scale that out to 5,000 homes, 10,000 homes, 100,000 homes. You're literally getting terabytes or even petabytes of data from these systems. And so you say, okay, well, terabytes to petabytes of data. And what are we going to do? We're going to just take all this stuff and put it on a blockchain? Does that make any sense to you? Say, okay, so we're forever going to store that my window hasn't been opened today. And the 24 readings that it's taken every hour, we're going to forever store those timestamps and those logs. No, it just makes no sense. So you say, oh, okay, well, what we'll do is take a compressed representation of the logs. Okay, well, that's something, but that's a little different, right? So the raw IoT data is living off chain. The audit log is living on chain. So now you're saying the blockchain is a component of an IoT system, not the IoT system. That's the first point. The second point is AI. For AI to be useful, you need enormous sets of information. So AI doesn't seem to be super compatible with the blockchain environment because you're talking about compressed representations, fidelity logs, audit logs, hashes, timestamps, these types of things living on blockchain. So you're saying, I want to have petabytes of information because then my AI is better. I can do more with big data. But the only thing the blockchain is giving me is the ability to verify the data is correct. So again, it's part of a solution, but it's not the solution. So when I hear people say IoT, AI, here's a token, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That said, if it's part of a broader IoT solution where you're saying we're going to create an incentive layer and an audit layer for the sensors and pay people to add sensors and have a sensor almost like a mining component, and combine that with trusted hardware so you can attest the data that's coming from the sensor, that could work. That could be interesting. And I'd love to invest some time, effort, money into a prototype to see if we can build something. And there's classes of protocols like Avalanche, which may work very well in those particular scenarios, where you don't necessarily care about absolute fidelity of the ledger, where you're saying, I don't really care if it was 89.2 degrees or 89.3 degrees. I just want kind of an aggregate. You would, generally speaking, use these types of things. So anyway, I'm very pessimistic. A pessimistic panda is pessimistic about IoT and blockchain for the moment, just at least the way I've read about some of these projects. Yes, Duncan is a real wizard. Colleagues with a background in econometrics who downplayed the rise of crypto, stating fiat currency is the only way global economic disparity can be managed. What's your take on a global currency? Well, when they get it right, the best we can hope for is losing a few percentage points of our wealth every year. When my grandfather bought his first home, it was $5,000. Now you can't buy a home for $5,000 unless it's Detroit, and an area with 50% unemployment and like bombs going off every day. So, inflation is a very pernicious thing. It does not affect me. I'm wealthy. So I have many great advisors and great people who work with me. And those people basically give me good tools to ensure that I never get poorer every year. I make money every year, and I can spend that money on things like mini goats and geese and horses, and I don't know, get barbecue from time to time. But when you're poor, you spend all your money every month, and usually spend more than you make. You go into greater and greater wealth, greater and greater debt, and your wages tend not to go up on par with inflation, or at least the real inflation rate, not the rate that they quote, because inflation is a little bit more complicated than just a number. And so as a consequence, the way the fiat system is constructed is it actually over time destroys the middle class and creates a larger and larger gap between the wealthy and the poor. And we've seen this happen many, many times. And that's when the economy is being well managed, meaning that they're following a decent monetary policy, which is keeping interest rates at a reasonable level and inflation relatively constrained. When they screw it up, they screw it up big. Go big or go home. Venezuela and Zimbabwe are two great examples of that, and it destroys entire economies. So I think the solution to the monetary policy problem is competition. This is what Hayek believed, and this whole concept of private monies. The problem with private monies is you're always at the mercy of the issuer. And so that's why they never really took off or never really got super successful, because by the time they actually started getting some momentum, the issuer would take advantage of the power that they had, and then they would just simply screw everything up. They'd get very corrupt. But if you have a cryptocurrency, you have no issuer, and you have very predictable, transparent rules. So you get the advantage of a public utility, but then you get the advantage of private competition with the public utilities. And then we can move to money of a portfolio. So my personal belief is our children, and as we get older, what our wealth is going to look like is a portfolio. So you will not store your money in your bank account as you do today. You'll instead have a pie chart, and it's going to have slices, and each and every one of them will be in different types of assets: real estate, labor units, airline miles, fiat currencies, cryptocurrencies, gold, silver, stocks, bonds. Maybe people are going to securitize the local Safeway or the local Subway or something. There'll be just thousands of assets there. It'll be a very diversified portfolio. Probably you'll manage it with the help of an AI that's just as good as a CFA. And it'll give you whatever your portfolio goals happen to be. High returns, high risk, low returns, low risk, inflation hedging, whatever that might be. And we have very good market making and payment systems, which are all programmable. And what will occur is when you go to Starbucks or you go to McDonald's or you go wherever you want to go, you pay, they receive the money they want, you pay in the instrument you want. So you go to Starbucks and you pay in gold, and then they get dollars. You go to McDonald's, you pay Microsoft stock, and they get euros. That's the reality we're moving towards. Now, for some reason, economists can't understand this, and it blows their mind, and they say, oh, wow, no, that can't exist. We need sovereign currency. So why? It's the point of a sovereign currency. If I can use Microsoft stock and have that somehow hedged with a portfolio as a means of exchange in the unit of account, and I can store value this way, why the hell do I need the US dollar? It does nothing for me. I have a portfolio, and that's much, much better than a dollar, because no matter how bad somebody screws up in the government, I'm going to be in charge and be able to use best practices to kind of give myself some safety and stability. So I think the world is just moving that way, and the only reason we haven't even gotten there is because of regulations, and those regulations will come to an end. All right, let's see here. Implement UBI on Cardano. Well, I think cryptocurrencies will probably be the first instrument that allows you to do UBI, and we'll see what we do. What's this about Chico Crypto? You guys still talking about that guy? Is he still on? I don't have any issue with Chico Crypto. He's just a shock jock, guys. They do it all the time. All right, let's see here. I love how people worry about the amount of units of ADA. It says, how did you choose 45 billion ADA in existence? How did Satoshi choose 21 million Bitcoin? Why not 22? Why not 23? Would your opinion of Bitcoin be substantially different if there was 21.5 million Bitcoin that will be in max circulation as opposed to 21? Would you be so different if the block reward started at 52 Bitcoin instead of 50 and then half? Would your perception be so different? Think about it. It's just numbers. They don't matter. I traveled to Japan and I have yen, and it's about 100 yen to a dollar, give or take. I traveled to Korea. I have won. It's about 1,000 won to the dollar. Does this somehow change your perception of Sony and your Samsung if you're looking at Sony goods priced in yen and Samsung goods priced in won? A lot of people are millionaires in Korea. It doesn't really mean that much because of the denomination unit. So they're just numbers. What matters is once the numbers have been set, what is the supply and demand? How many people are consuming? Why are they consuming? How much supply is available on market? What's the liquidity? What's the turnaround? What's the trading going on? These are the things that matter. These are the things that people have to think about. And those are the factors that will ultimately determine whether the cryptocurrency survives or it doesn't survive. There's cryptocurrencies that have low supply that are doing quite well. So cryptocurrencies that have low supply that have no penetration or prominence. Ones with high supply, number 3, XRP, doing just fine. So it depends all about trading supply and demand, these factors. And so you have to look at factors that create natural demand. And the ones that have those and the communities that are behind that are the ones that survive long term, in my experience. Yeah, right here. Can you get into one of those hearings in School of Politicians about crypto? I saw some great hearings recently about Libra, and those were certainly fun to watch. And it was certainly fun to see the politicians basically try to not admit, but at the same time admit that they want a monopoly with the dollar and that it's useful geopolitically to have the dollar. There's oh no, we can't affect monetary stability. Can't mess with the dollar. And then Facebook saying, why not? What are you guys worried about? What's going on? And they're like, oh, nothing. We're just saying that you shouldn't mess with the dollar. But why don't you want us to? And then some of you had the guts to say the dollar needs to be the global standard. Whenever you give people power, you have to ask yourself, is it power of merit or is it power of necessity? And if it's power of necessity, almost always it will become corrupt, abused, and hurt society at some point. It doesn't matter if you're the world reserve currency or Uber. It doesn't matter if you're a huge marketplace like eBay or the local gas station that happens to be the only gas station for 60 miles, and so they can charge 50 cents more per gallon. There's all kinds of people that abuse positions of authority and power. And the only way you can overcome these evil little sinks that hurt society is competition. You have to have other standards emerge, and those other standards will allow you to overcome the ossified past. And that's exactly what we're doing with cryptocurrencies. We're creating competing standards to not only the dollar, but the euro, the yuan, and the world order on how finance works. And what this will do is it will dramatically innovate everything. It'll make wire transfers faster. It'll make compliance more automated. It will improve overall transactions. It will create standards for metadata embedding and attribution and other such things. It'll create whole new programming languages. Dozens have already been created, but more on the way. And that innovation will work its way into the legacy financial world if it wants to survive. If its only argument for survival is the government will come and protect us, I will remind them that that never worked for any industry that was outpaced by innovation. Look at the phone companies, look at the horse and buggy manufacturers, look at basically anyone, the coal industry. Government come and save us. They can do it in the short term. They can't do it in the long term because people don't like getting screwed. And while corporations and vested interests have a lot of influence over government, at the end of the day, when people know they're getting screwed en masse in the millions or billions, those people will change their governments if their governments are not responsive long term. Every government is aware of this, and they understand they have a certain degree of flexibility for corruption. And if they go beyond that flexibility, the entire order collapses down. There's no greater demonstration of that than Chernobyl. If you look at that incident, the Soviet Union had a way of doing things. And then this global event happens, which kind of busted the lid on the entire Soviet system. And they couldn't just sweep it under the rug. They needed almost 1 million people to participate in the cleanup. And every single person in Europe cared very deeply about that. And it put enormous financial pressure and social pressure and enormous organizational pressure on the entire Soviet system, where everybody kind of knew they were lying. The people knew they were lying, but there was just no way to hide it anymore. And they just lost that core credibility. And then it kind of set the stage for this idea that maybe they're not so invincible and we can change the system. So things happen, and 2008 was the death knell of the entire world financial system. Everybody took a step back, they took a deep breath, and they said, we need to change things. And people started doing that. Microprudential policy started becoming big deals at every central bank. Stability became a big deal. Stress tests became a big deal. Read Timothy Geithner's book on it. In fact, that's the title of the book, Stress Test. And there's just hundreds of efforts that went underway. People started questioning the BIS. People started questioning the IMF. And meanwhile, cryptocurrencies came out. People started making their own monies. And these monies didn't get instantly banned or removed. These monies started getting a foothold and worth not just thousands, but billions, and then hundreds of billions of dollars. And they will continue to grow as a consequence. So I'm very optimistic that things will change and the world will get to a better place. It just takes time. Charles, do you think proof of stake can prove to be as censorship resistant as Bitcoin? I believe it more so. Bitcoin always federates to a small group of people. Currencies tend to get better distributed over time. So the Gini coefficient will always improve with proof of stake currencies because people cash out, people sell. There's velocity behind money. Whereas mining is a business that attends to economy of scale. So it's just like aircraft manufacturers. You're really not going to get a lot more than a few major ones. Greetings from Sicily. Mi amo Sicilia. It's a beautiful place. Palermo is kind of a dump, but Marsala is just an incredible city. Marketing, marketing, marketing after Shelley. The masses are dumb. Quality will rise, but we need the dumb people to drive the price up a bit. We don't need to drive the price up a bit, guys. If it's real, the price goes up. If it's not real, the price won't go up. What the hell was marketed with Bitcoin? It was Marty Malmy making a fucking logo. Think about it. Guys, if this is real deal, if this is the real technology, the people will come as Field of Dreams. Yes, of course, good marketing will come. Of course, we'll broadcast the USPs. Of course, we'll write a beautiful white paper and we'll go and work with people on messaging and hammer community management. But either it works or it doesn't. Either it's a great product or it's not. And either it solves real problems or it doesn't. And if it solves problems, people will use the system. There's a demand and a need for these things. And the price reflects that. And if your only goal in life is for the price of cryptocurrency to go up, you're in the wrong business, guys. You've already lost. The wave is gone. When I came in at Bitcoin at $1, that was when to be in. That's why you get things like this. If you're in now and you're hoping Lambos from this environment, it's too big. Too many people know about it. Maybe you get a 5x, maybe you get a 10x if you're lucky. And that's a small scale. But we're no longer in the era of 1,000x or 2,000x, 3,000. We're in the era of build things. And over time, those things can be worth trillions of dollars. But it only comes because it's useful, there's merit, and it's actually displacing or improving things for the lives of billions of people. That's the business I'm in. It's why I devote so much time. There is nothing satisfying in life for me about making large sums of money. I mean, what am I going to do with it? What more could I buy? Where could I go? The only reason I'm still here, the only reason we still work is because this work changes people's lives. It's meaningful. It's hard. It takes time. It takes effort. But it's not about making you rich. And if you think that's what it's about, go to Tron. Go to somewhere else where somebody will tell you sweet lies about how they're going to make everybody rich. And you'll lose everything more often than not. Because that's what always happens when people promise you fast returns. You lose it unless you get really lucky. And guess what? You didn't win. You took it out of some other person's pocket and you cashed out first. And if you can live with yourself under those circumstances, then yippee-ki-yay. You're a horrible human being. I don't want to know you. If you'd like to change the world, then stay in this movement. Let's change it together. Any desire to talk to Richard Hart? I think he's talked about us once or twice. I don't think he said kind things. But yeah, if he invites me, I'll come on a show. Almost met Bill Gates. I knew Paul Allen, but Paul recently died, and that was sad. I did meet Woz. It's always easy to meet Woz in this space. Okay, let's see here. Do you see a DAG possibility for upgrading and replacing the blockchain? So the reason why you want to use a DAG is that you have people making history. Okay, so you have all these people submitting pending transactions, and they're flowing in. They're flowing into your memory pool. We actually did Symphony of Blockchains. You see this big glowing thing of the mempool. And somewhere along the way, somebody says, I'm going to make a block. So they grab that big set of transactions and they stuff it into a block, get as much in there as they can, and then they attach it to the blockchain. Okay. So what if you have a system where you don't pick your leaders ahead of time? There's a merit-based system. So like mining is a good example of that. So you have this mempool, and everybody has a different view of the mempool. It's kind of like an elephant where you can only see so much of it. So somebody grabs the ass and somebody's grabbing the tusk. So you have different things going into different blocks. And then there's mad competition. Now, in the Bitcoin style system, whoever wins that's the block. Every other block gets thrown away. And there you go. Now, what if it's not clear who's won? They have both kind of won at the same time. Well, the first one to get a block on top of it is the real chain. The other one gets thrown away. And that's called an orphan block. Now, what if you say, well, hang on a second here. What if we get smart about the mempool? Because that's going to be so large, we won't be able to stuff everything in one block. Instead of having to wait 10 minutes, click, 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 and make them what are called pairwise disjoint or something like that. So basically, if you pick any two blocks that are potential blocks that are being made, this one will have no common transactions with this one. That's the hope. Now, if you can do that, then the next step is saying, oh, okay, well, why don't we just, instead of having one linear flow of blocks, why don't we just build a web of them, like a DAG? And Bob can work on one block, and Alice can work on another block, and Bill can work on another block, and all of them will be connected to the tree. And we know if we serialize all these blocks for that rank, that somehow they'll all bundle together and become one big super block, and there'll be no conflicting transactions. So there are a lot of DAG protocols. We've written one. We wrote a whole theory on it called parallel chains. There's a whole science out of Israel from Aviv Zohar and Yonatan Solopinski, Spectre and Phantom. There's a paper from Pramod Viswani called Prism that basically talk about the theory of how to do this. The Bitcoin NG was another example of that. And they have subsequent papers that have come out that explain these things. Fruit Chains talks about the incentive side of it. And it's, generally speaking, a pretty good idea. If you can serialize, then you can make blocks as quickly as you want. You get a pretty good idea that these blocks are mostly pairwise disjoint. They may have some common transactions, so you reduce the overall efficiency, but more often than not, the efficiency is very good. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense in the proof of stake context, because in the case of proof of work, you don't know who's going to win. But in the case of proof of stake, you're doing some decision engine to elect leaders. And you're saying, okay, Bob is the leader now. Alice is the leader now. Jim is the leader now. So why would you put a protocol in play that basically is built just to allow people to bolt on blocks as quickly as they can? Instead, what you want to do is you, especially for Ouroboros, say, well, let's just run epochs in parallel. So basically, we're going to elect epoch 1, epoch 2, epoch 3. Instead of doing them linearly, where you do 1, then 2, then 3, you just have the sets work. And there's some coherent way of filtering transactions, of knowing which one goes in which, and how to do cross-shard transactions. So you can do better in a proof of stake environment where you elect people ahead of time. There's a huge advantage of knowing who's going to do what where and how they're going to be ordered and so forth. If you don't know that, the best you can do is just put in a more sophisticated data structure and then try some exotic technique, maybe shared mining pools or a serializer or something to help you chop up things and ensure blocks are pairwise disjoint. But good stuff. Why so moody, Charles? Not moody at all. I feel great. And greetings from Romania. I love Romania. It's one of my favorite countries in the world. Am I familiar with Elrond, a project Grigori Roshu is advising on? What's my take on it? I know of Elrond. I've read some things from their website, and I know that they're planning on using Yella and that they're a Romanian-based team. So I feel pretty good about any person working with Grigori. He's a good guy. And, I haven't really done super due diligence on the project yet, so I'm not in a position to say whether they're good or bad. But, the fact that they seem to want to do reasonable things and they're working with reasonable people is at least a pretty good starting point. It's not hard to know what to pull together to build a pretty competitive cryptocurrency these days. The hard part is usually writing all the code, getting it released, building a community around it, making it useful, having a good growth strategy. These things take a heck of a lot of time. They're a lot of work. Greetings from Aurora, Colorado. I love the Aurora Art Center. Aurora is a nice place. Why spend time and efforts on updating Daedalus Byron if it's supposed to stop using it in the short time? Daedalus is separate from Byron. These people, they're separate. One is a front end. It's where you store your money. It's how you manage everything. It is the GUI. And it connects to a server. And the server is the back end, and that's the Byron client. And when Shelley comes, we take that out, set it over here. We put Shelley in. And Daedalus is here. You still have Daedalus. Think it through. Oh, man, you people are going to be the death of me. How is Phil Wadler's work going? Absolutely great. He's working with Memo Chakravarty, and they're doing great work. Why does Gates' bed buddy Buffett be against crypto? Because he doesn't understand it. And he's very honest. He said, if I don't understand it, I'm not going to invest in it. Guys, different boats for different floats. He's like 80. Let him do his thing. He's really good at it. Do I like dogs or cats? Dogs. I like animals that when you call them, they come to you and love you unconditionally. I don't like animals that ignore you, shit all over every place, and tear up your couches with their claws. Okay. Charles, any plans to make inroads into Jamaica? I love Jamaica, man. I'd love to do that, but I just haven't had a chance to get around to it. And in fact, I had to leave Barbados early. I was really upset about that. No, we do not have any active business in Hong Kong at the moment. I mean, I'm sure cats love us in their own kitty cat way. My mom and dad have cats, and they love their cats. I think at times more than me. I'm very glad you named your cat Shelley, and it should have 2 E's, not 1 E, or else you have a different Shelley. Hello from London Town, UK. Well, hello, London Town, UK. Lovely place. It's better than London, Ontario, which I hear is a dreary, dreary place. I say that for one of our employees, who we all love and admire. Is ADA the love child of Ethereum and Bitcoin? No comment. Hello from the Philippines. Whereabouts in the Philippines, Juan Paulo? Did you get stoned in Barbados? Guys, I live in Colorado. Think about it. Colorado. Why would you go to Barbados for that? It's like, boy, I want to have some wine. I should leave France, and I'm going to go ahead and fly to Uganda. Why UTXO? It's closer to the functional model, and actually extended UTXO does allow you to have smart contracts. So Chakravarti actually did several presentations. If you go to YouTube, you can see that. Could Basho and Voltaire be completed before Shelley? No, because Shelley is nearly ready. And people don't believe me about that, but it is. Is 2020 timeline still realistic? Yes. Again, you guys don't believe me about that. That's okay. Charles, I'm a retired firefighter / medic. You need a hand on your ranch. Love Colorado. Dave, where are you from? You Coloradan? Charles, your thoughts on the cancellation of Justin Sun's lunch with Warren Buffett? You know, I don't understand a dude who spends $5 million or whatever the hell it was to go have dinner with an old guy who's got a lot of money. I know a lot of old guys with lots of money. I can assure you that it doesn't cost $5 million to go have dinner with them. But he said, I'm going to do that. And then, of course, being Justin's son, he's really good at making everything a marketing event. So that's exactly what he did. He just basically, I'm going to invite this guy to lunch and this guy to lunch. And CoinDesk played so into it. Everybody did. They're just like, ooh, who's Justin going to invite now? Oh, is he going to invite this guy now? Is he going to invite a member of the press? They do this whole thing. And God, it was so much fun to watch. It was almost like when McAfee was fleeing from Belize and he was blogging about it real time, about the costumes he was wearing and the other things. And you're thinking in the back of your head, like, this guy is fleeing the country for because of a murder investigation or something. Yet all I can pay attention to is his fake heart attack. I mean, it's good media. It's good entertainment. But the dark reality is that he took $5 million of investor money and spent it to have lunch with somebody. I spent $5 million of project capital to basically set an entire smart contract research and development program for well more than a year with 19 people and some of the world's top scientists. What's more useful to your ecosystem? I mean, I guess ultimately people have to decide that, but I just can't understand why that seems to be a good thing to do. Then he says he has kidney stones and decides not to go. And then that day he's at a party. I mean, if I spent $5 million for lunch, guys, I don't care if someone cut my dick off. I'd put it in the freezer, bandage myself up, go to dinner, go to lunch, and then politely excuse 45 minutes to go get it reattached and hope it still works afterwards. I mean, $5 million is not a trivial amount of money for anyone. I don't care who you are. And it just was unbelievable to me that went down that way. You know, the other thing is moving it from New York City, Smith and Walensky there to Silicon Valley. I like Smith and Walensky in New York City. It's a great restaurant, really great restaurant, good place to be. New York's a great place to be. It's a big financial center. And I once saw Keanu Reeves there. It's a good restaurant. So nothing about that made any sense to me. That quote about the dick is probably going to become a meme or something like that. Charles Dick Freezer. Well, I'm just having fun today. Charles, have you ever looked deep within yourself? Yes, especially during isolation tank therapy, where you float in a tank silently for 90 minutes with no light, no sound. You see within yourself. And also when I read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. Good old logotherapy. Programmer from the Philippines, Manila. Well, I'm glad that they're finally making some upgrades to the airport in Manila. You know, it used to be you had to take a bus from one terminal to the other and take you 2 or 3 hours and you'd miss your flight, even though it's like right next to it. Come on, let's find something. Did you find meaning? Nope. And Rick asked, did you go to Barbados to rescue John McAfee? Now, Rick, you might be more on the McAfee train than I am. So is he currently captured or is he back on his gun yacht or what? Rick, like, what's the story there? Do you know? Does anybody know about McAfee? I'm sorry, I haven't had time to follow that Twitter feed. I really do like the guy. He's so entertaining. I really do. And he's just an interesting guy. Oh, he was released. And he's in Lithuania. Anybody else can confirm that? He was on Twitter, yes. Okay. He's in Cuba. Good old McAfee. I mean, at some point we'll do something together. I ran into him at Malta last year, and I didn't have a chance to talk with him much, but we'll do something at some point. I don't know what it'll be, but it'll be really awesome. He was detained, but back on Twitter. Okay. I love these questions right here. Charles, you said at the beginning of next year that in 2019, we would fight to be the 3rd and 4th place in coin market cap, and yet it's all going the way down to 13th place. Any reason? It's like, it's good to be back. I took a week off. I got poked and prodded, scanned, and these are the questions I get. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. Charles asking, what is your biggest priority right now? Shipping Shelley is the biggest priority. It's long overdue. We got so much damn work we got to do. We're doing it. We're getting it done. The team is working so hard. We're real proud of them. It just takes time. And I'm incredibly glad to see that we're moving in the right direction. It just takes time. And I'm very, very happy that we know where we're at. It's our number one priority, though. I can't really do much else until Shelley's out. And by the way, I have put my whole company on hold. We have other great ideas and we have other products and projects we'd like to publicly announce or work on, but we can't really do that until Shelley's done. You have to finish A before you can do to B. So I don't really like the idea of putting an entire company on hold to get a product out. I'd like to get that product out. So there's an enormous amount of pressure and urgency to get these things done. So here, any thoughts on the recent IRS letter news? I didn't get one. Pay your taxes, people. Charles, thoughts on physical gold as an investment? I love the idea of owning it, holding it, having it. The only problem is you have to have a place to put it. And it would be extremely unfortunate if you had $500,000 of gold and a very cheap safe and somebody broke into your home and stole all of it. So then you say, oh, well, maybe I'll store it somewhere else. But then you've kind of defeated the whole purpose of owning the gold, right? So if you have the facility that you can physically store it and you think that's a good deal, then that makes a lot of sense. But if you don't, then unfortunately it suffers from that same problem. That's why I love crypto, because Bitcoin at this point is basically digital gold. It's not going away. It has that same value proposition. And you can do a 3 of 5 multi-sig or something and just layer ledger devices and put them in safety deposit boxes around the world. I mean, you can get so much better security out of Bitcoin than you ever could physical gold. What has been your last wow moment from Corgon? It actually came from the Jean Leroy painting just behind me. I noticed this the other day. The old depictions, if you read like any of the old Roman historians or you kind of study Roman history, the old depictions of gladiators is that they would look towards whoever's putting on the games. So it's the little box. And that would be the person who would decide whether the person lives or dies when they kill them. And usually they let them go. They'd make a little of an act out of it. But at the end of the day, a gladiator's property, and killing property is a bad deal for everybody. And gladiators were also kind of like celebrities for their day. So they'd actually market stuff and advertise stuff. So just like we with bicyclists and NASCAR, they put things on their cars, or they'd actually advertise products during the games. Which is just a crazy thought that capitalism existed even back in Rome. But in the painting, the gladiator is not looking at the emperor. He's looking at the audience. And the emperor looks displeased. I never noticed that. And it was just a wow moment. I was like, wow. Jean-Léo Jerome was painting this defiant gladiator who becomes such a prima donna and so arrogant that he thinks that he can unilaterally decide from the crowd whether his person lives or dies instead of the emperor. And it's just a beautiful moment, a beautiful painting. But it's important to get these little things and notice these little things, and art always does that for you. Charles, I'm taking the girlfriend to Japan. Can you suggest some places to visit? Do the strip. So start Tokyo and just take the Shinkansen to Osaka, and then stop in Kyoto, and then also stop in Nara. The Shinkansen won't stop in Nara, so go to Osaka first, and then take a train to Nara. It's like 45 minutes. If you do that strip, that's a whole week, and you'll see everything. You can go to the Robot Cafe in Tokyo and see Shibuya and Roppongi, and you can go to Ginza. You can kind of see the Emperor's Palace from afar, go to Tokyo Tower. And then when you go to Kyoto, there's tons of things to do there. And then Nara is just amazing. They have the Tadaiji and those tiny deer. And then Osaka is a lot of fun as well. Go to Namba, and there's super good food. If you're there longer, then go up north, fly up to Hokkaido. It's North Island. There's hot springs there and some very old castles that are not molested by time. And we didn't destroy them when we invaded. So that's a good place to go. Osaka Castle is also a good day trip. More of an afternoon. ADA a feminist coin? No. ADA is the people's coin. Charles, when you and the team deliver Shelley, what will you do to celebrate? I am going to do the craziest motherfucking thing in the world. I have been training, getting my mountaineer and ice climbing skills back up, and been actually taking paragliding and paramotor lessons. And after Shelley ships, we're going to go down to Antarctica with the Iceman. It's Wim Hof. We're going to go climb Mount Terror. I have a 30-year-old bottle of Macallan whiskey with me. Drink some of that when we summit, and then we're going to paramotor back down to the base camp. So that's my Shelley celebration party. Maybe Gogan. It takes a little bit of time to get there, and I have to wait for winter to break. And also, I've always wanted to climb Mount Terror because of the name. It's not actually a particularly tall or interesting mountain, but Mount Terra in Antarctica. Unforkable Algorand, all BFT protocols are unforkable. Once finality is achieved, it's achieved. You can't go back. There's no rollbacks. Charles, when Joe Rogan podcast? After Shelley and after Shelley and then after Gogan, probably. You have to have enough meat and potatoes for a show of that scale. I mean, just like Tron, there was nothing there to justify a $5 million marketing outlay. So why would you go and try to get on a show with that huge, broad spectrum and say, oh, we have all the stuff that's shipping, but it's not here yet? After it ships and you can do stuff and there's democracy and there's tons of really cool things to talk about, and there's not lots of momentum, that's when you go talk to Joe and you get them all like super excited. And you know, maybe I can get him come Colorado or something. We can have Willie Nelson, and it'll be a cool episode. And then I'll have the Elon Musk T-shirt. I love Willie. Yeah, of course a Macallan 30 is an excellent choice. There's not many of them floating around, too. That's the kind of whiskey you drink when you're celebrating something. Charles, what keeps you awake in the middle of the night? Your biggest fear? You know, after being pushed out of Ethereum and, you know, living the life I've lived, I've had a lot of near-death experiences. I've gone to 52 countries. I've been to really, really bad places in the world. And been shot at and all these things. There's not much in life that really bothers me that much. You know, you have to have the confidence to know that no matter what happens, you're going to land on your feet. And no matter how hard you get hit, you can get back up. It's not about being able to be the big guy. It's being able to create opportunities and chances over and over again that you're always still relevant. You always have a shot. Because you can't predict the weather, you can't predict the world. You lose elections, you get fired from your company goes out of business. Macroeconomic environment goes crazy. You can know the future, you can just be too late. There was plenty of people in 2008 who knew that the mortgage market was going to go completely crazy, but they couldn't afford the negative carry to make money on it, and they just basically got broke, sometimes weeks before making it big. Elon Musk was 12 hours away from bankruptcy when Tesla was in its darkest time in 2008. So it's not about the fear. It's just about the confidence to know that you can overcome these things and to have a sane way of making decisions. You have to make them from first principles, and you have to have good checks and balances with the way you think and make sure that you share it. Charles, why don't you have any kids? Just never had them. I guess I'll end up like Wallace from Blade Runner 2049. I'll go blind and live in a weirdo wooden watery palace and talk about angels and have millions of replicants. That is my future. That was such a good movie. Denis Villeneuve is just damn good director. Y'all excited for Dune? The remake of Dune? Come on, guys. What is your target in life? Right now, I am so excited and so fired up for the launch of Shelley. That is my target. That is where I'm looking. That's where we're going. After Shelley, I'll go climb Mount Terra and send you guys some great Twitter pictures. And thank you. Finally, somebody can't wait for Dune. You know it's going to be a great remake. I mean, it's going to be hard to beat Naked Sting, but come on. It's going to be great. And the spice must flow. Good old Arrakis. Will IOHK be developing any new projects in the near future? Maybe. Maybe not. Why it's cool to be me. Loved by all. You ever do any hunting, Charles? No, but some people very close to me hunt very regularly. They bow hunt, and that's always an interesting thing. And if they're successful, I eat elk meat, and I eat a lot of it for a long period of time. So I get very excited during the first 2 weeks, and then after that, I say, "Can I have something else?" But No, I don't hunt personally. I do travel a lot. How about gay hunting? I don't even know what that is. I don't want to know. After Connecticut and all the experiences there, I don't want to return to that. Yeah, I love this right here. You ever see a Sasquatch? So a Sasquatch is a great example of deficiencies in critical thinking. There actually are people who live every day, wake up every day, and they believe in Bigfoot. And they're Bigfoot hunters, and they've devoted their life to finding these creatures. And you say, guys, everything in existence in the earth is finite. Biological systems are finite. They die. Okay? Doesn't matter if they're these old sharks that live 500 years or those damn lobsters that never seem to die. At some point, they die. Okay? So if you have a Bigfoot or a Loch Ness monster, you don't have one. You have a breeding population, and they die. And when they die, they leave corpses, which means you find their bones. Right? We have dinosaur bones, even 65 million years later. So if the Bigfoot exists, where are the bodies? You'd find them, and they would be not human. They would be something else, and they would be recent, and we'd find them in the forest. We'd find the corpses, unless they dissolve into dust or something like that. Come on, this is crazy. So, it's just a great example. You got to think the whole thing through, and people believe in strange, wonky things. Ugh. Actually, I have a story about Dune and spice. So I used to play EVE Online many years ago, and I macro mined when I played EVE Online, and I had a corporation, and basically the company had a bunch of bot accounts, because you could buy those Plex cards for about 250 million ISK, and they would all train up on Hulks, and I'd ice mine with them, and I eventually had dozens of these things running concurrently, so it became quite an obsession. And I supplied an enormous amount of ice and would ship it to Jeddah. And the tagline of the company was, "The ice must flow." You're kind of like spice, the ice must flow. And I got so obsessed with it, I realized that it would at some point have lifestyle implications if I kept doing it. I would end up like that guy from the South Park World of Warcraft episode. So I said, okay, I have to stop. And I never looked back, although I do miss EVE from time to time. Ask Joe Pesci for the bodies. By the way, guys, new movie coming out, The Irishman. You got Al Pacino, you got Robert De Niro, and Joe Pesci back together. Come on now. That is going to be a goddamn amazing movie. Y'all know it. And Martin Scorsese. And apparently DH people, too. Charles, as much as we love hearing your thoughts, any chance of minimizing the amount of conversation hijacking in the interviews so that they can get a few more questions in? No. Am I storming Area 51? Who's to say I haven't already been there? All right. How's your implementation of ADA in Ethiopia? It's actually Atala plus ADA, and there's ongoing negotiations there. Things are running on Africa time. I love you too, Jake, in a completely platonic way. Okay. Charles, have you tried DMT or LSD? If so, can you tell us about your experiences? Sorry, guys. Can't kiss and tell. How is Atala helping ADA? That has been explained in prior AMAs. Please refer to them. ADA versus EOS 5 years from now. It's kind of like, what was that old competition? What was that when Microsoft was going against those guys? That'll come to me in a little bit. I'll remember. And then Yeah, I'll come back to it. EOS is my favorite whipping boy. Okay, let's see here. I love questions like this. Charles, what are your thoughts on the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian people? How can that question be answered in any reasonable way that doesn't piss off a lot of people? And why is that question even being asked of me? I am a CEO of a cryptocurrency company, and we're building a cryptocurrency. I am not a geopolitical guy. I'm not in charge of this. I have nothing to do with it. I haven't picked any sides. I'm not with Israel or Palestine or anything. The only country that I support is the United States because I'm an American. I live here. And yeah, I have my, and I, like all good Americans, I have my criticisms of the government and the politicians running it. But I don't really have a choice not to be at least somewhat pro-America. But outside of that, I stay out of geopolitics, except for certain notable instances like social credit in China, which I think is one of the greatest human rights violations in the entire world. And it enables things like the concentration camps of millions of Muslims in Western China. And the longer that goes on, the more pernicious that becomes, the more of the collective soul of the entire world will lose. And we should never tolerate that type of dystopianism. Hey, ideas about Trump in 2020. Now, that one I can comment on because I'm American. He will win if the Democrats keep fielding these types of candidates. Just a fact. They're crazy. The AOC wing of the party is crazy. And yeah, I'm sorry. You just can't say 70% taxes, 5% wealth tax, free everything, $1 trillion of student loans get excused, destroy the entire private healthcare system. You just can't do that. You can't take a half of the entire U.S. economy and socialize it Venezuela style, and then honestly run like that. We have many problems in this country that could be solved by compromise and collaboration. 2005, we tried to do a guest worker program for immigration. It fell through. That's a big part of the illegal immigration problem. It's not even being entertained. It's just wholesale legalization. So as much as I disdain Trump and everything he stands for and how he communicates and how he represents our country, he will continue to be our president if the Democrats keep doing what they're doing. Not a Bernie Sanders guy, then. No, I don't like anybody who goes to the Soviet Union on their honeymoon. It's an evil, evil place. Could SolarWinds wipe Cardano's ledger? No. Did you ever lucid dream? Yes. They even sell a mask for that. Charles, do you eat kosher halal? That's that clever question of, are you one of those triple parentheses people? I'm actually not Jewish. Lineage-wise, I'm Italian Catholic. And there's almost no Judaism in the family. I'm 0.02% or something like that, Ashkenazi Jew. But everybody seems to think I am Jewish, and I'm not sure why. 4chan especially so. They have pictures of me with like the hooked nose and the triple parentheses and so forth. I even once actually took a 23andMe genealogy test because I was curious about the two sides of the family I didn't know much about, because I know I'm a Norwegian and Italian, and I was wondering what the other side was, and I publicly posted those results on Twitter. Glasses and the beard. Okay, fair enough. And I do like bagels and lox. They stole your DNA. Guys, I assure you, with my lifestyle, my DNA was lost long ago. Long ago. Ciao, Dede. Come sta? Come on, guys, give me some good questions. Bagels. Yeah, you got it, HM. Charles, will you be able to stake on the Yoroi wallet? My understanding is yes, but that is an Emergo question, not a Charles question. Charles, what's beyond the doors of the room? I'm never going to open them. It's going to be left to your imagination. It could be like the Willy Wonka scene where they open it up and you have the chocolate river, or it could be a utility closet, or it could be part of a house, or this could be my office. You never know. It's part of the magic. You have to have magic, guys. Would you like to do a karaoke? You know, I did. Every time I go to Japan, got a lot of karaoke. That's Japan. Meth lab. There are a few Breaking Bad memes of me. You're a love dungeon. Is the Rust team waiting for the Haskell team to catch up with testnet part 2? No, they're just running ahead. As soon as they're ready, they're ready. They're going to launch. And we're just going to keep going until something gets done. Paramotor Garage. There we go. You sound like you took some drinks before this AMA. No, my just don't give a fuck level has reached peak. And I'm also back from vacation. Have you read Last Question from Isaac Asimov? Yes. Charles, what do you think of Cosmos? Are you any closer to purchasing a Lamborghini tractor? I will buy one. And when you guys ask one Lambo, I will take a picture and I'll tweet it. Are you a workaholic? Yes. Can you explain the advantages of Rust and Haskell over C++? If you have to ask, the explanation will be lost on you. Do you believe in God? Not my mountain. Staking by Christmas? Yes. Or Santa's going to come and get me and kick the crap out of me with a bag full of coal. If a non-US military want to develop on Cardano, would you have an issue with that? I wouldn't have an issue with anybody who develops on Cardano. It's an open platform. It's an open protocol. Everybody gets to use the internet. Everybody should be able to use Cardano. Love these rapid firing. What would be your favorite song? Depends on my mood. There are many. It can be from a Trent Reznor song all the way to Pink Floyd. And if I'm just in emo mode. What's my favorite color? Black. What is your replacement? There is a single person risk. That's also known as a key man risk. There are actually 3 people that I'm growing up and vetting within the company to replace me. And yes, Lamborghini makes tractors, Martin. It's actually what they started making. And the guy who was in charge of Lamborghini, it was Lamborghini, he actually bought Ferraris, and he sent Enzo Ferrari a letter with a bunch of suggestions about things to improve. And Enzo Ferrari told him to fuck off. So Lamborghini got so angry, he started making his own high-performance cars. And I argue they're far better than Ferraris now, especially the Huracan. Black with red, by the way. That's why we have it on our logo. Blonde or brunette? Redhead. Do you listen to Tupac? No. Never really was he a West Side or East Side? He was West Side. Yeah, he was West Side. And Biggie Small was East Side. If memory comes. Charles, you play golf. You come through Louisiana. Come play a free round on me. Where are you at, Dave? Where in Louisiana? Is that nearby Nolens or Mo? Or because I do go from Louisiana from time to time. Might take you up on that. Why do you hate Dan Larimer? I don't hate Dan Larimer. I just hate it when he lies about our project and say we plagiarized him. And it's an unforgivable thing to say. But I wish him well. You know, he's living down there in Blacksburg and doing his thing. Redheady's Testarossa. Yeah. You can get it with Aventador too. Any plans for Cardano in Scandinavia? I was just in Norway. I was in Oslo, and then I went up to Tromsø, and I tried to actually do some dog sledding. And unfortunately, the tracks were all just washed out because it was terrible weather. We went to go see the Northern Lights and went into Finland, and damn it, it was still terrible weather. But we did actually make a fire at -20 during the rain. So you got to give those the Sami people credit for their ability to survive out there. Did you ever play non-US sports like cricket? I've watched them. I've watched rugby and cricket. I like rugby a lot. It's a really cool sport. Football is also nice too. Do you like the Porsche GT3? No. Cadillacs. Cadillacs are the key. And if you're going to buy a foreign car, a Lamborghini is quite nice. The Huracan and the Aventador are nice. They're both very high quality. The Audi R8 is also a very good car. I'd argue it's a great starter supercar. I love this right here. It looks to me like you're not in a rush with Ada and you're waiting for computers to be more powerful to make it happen you want. Aren't you afraid not delivering you? Time's up. Good luck. Well, B4D Trader, I have a lot of Ada. I have that. And, we can stake with that Ada. And if Shelley doesn't ship, I can't stake with that Ada. So put some pieces together in your mind. Like, just think about that from different angles and imagine if that would create some urgency or not. I fell in love with the Audi TT and the baseball leather interior. Yeah, the TT is all right. It's kind of like a VW Bug that's on steroids. Corvette or GT500? Corvette, come on. Count sounds very calm. Yeah, it's been around for a while. I don't know why a person would invest that much time and effort into impersonating me, but there you go. All the more power to them. Yeah, the Z06 Corvette's great. I do like Porsche. I just don't like the bodies. 918 is a marvel of engineering, and the 911 is a marvel of engineering. And transmissions they built for Porsche is just amazing. I've just never been a fan of the design. And if you're going to spend like $100,000, $200,000 on a car, Jesus Christ, you should get something that looks really beautiful. Charles, not a fan of Tesla? I know Elon Musk. When the new Roadster comes out, maybe. Let's see what else we got here. Come on, guys. These are rapid fire. Mercedes-Benz SL63 AMG. Come on. No, Crypto Crow. I'm not a Mercedes man at all. Anyway, I will buy any car, even a Kia, before I buy a Mercedes-Benz. All right, come on, give me the, I'll let you take mine in November. Ha! You come to my place, I'll let you drive my CT6. And you'll never buy another Mercedes again, let me tell you. Thoughts on Craig Wright? Unlike what I've already said, he's molten tar. No matter what happens, if you get it on you, you can't get it off and it burns. You sound like you know a lot about cars. What's your favorite supercar? It's always a trade-off because the best supercars are damn near impossible to fix or do anything with once you break them. Like the Koenigsegg, they're the best of the best. They make Bugatti Veyrons look like crap. But if you break anything at all, like a small amount of damage on a Koenigsegg, it'll take you like 6 months to get your fucking car back. On the other hand, Lamborghini's probably got the best of the repair networks, and they don't have to ship it to Terni, Italy anymore to fix them because they're using Audi parts. So a lot of dealerships can fix them these days, and there's a lot of mechanics floating around. So, and is the performance of the Koenigsegg so much better than one of the high-end Aventadors? No, not really, unless you're doing like some extreme track stuff. That said, I mean, if you're an American, just get like a Dodge Hellcat or a Dodge Demon or a really souped up Mustang, and you probably can smoke all these things. All righty. McLaren Spider. No, Huracan Spider. Much better. Come on, give me one good question to end on, guys. I'm looking for it. Charles, what is your relationship with Andreas Antonopoulos? I see him around. We talk from time to time. We, there's not a bad relationship there. He's just doing his thing. I do my thing. There's a lot of that in the space, and that's fine. What's your favorite topic in mathematics? Statistics or calculus? Math is much larger than statistics calculus. I studied number theory. I also like logic a lot. And I really, really enjoy reverse mathematics as well. Charles, my first Lambo will have a custom paint job dedicated to you and your genius. Well, have fun with that. What is the spiciest thing you've ever eaten? Oh, that's a great story to actually end this AMA on. I'm going to tell it. I think this is the first time I've ever told it publicly. So I was down in Louisiana. This was years ago, and I was visiting a friend. I was staying at a hotel with another friend, and I was refilling my rental car at a gas station. Now, down south, gas stations can be public bazaars, public events, and this particular gas station was just that. So people were selling things. There was a little stand out for food, and this really creepy weirdo comes up to me, and he must be in his 50s. He's missing some teeth. His hair is all gone. Got like Riley things on the side, and he looks at me with those beady eyes, and he says, "Hey, boy, get out to my truck. I want to show you something." And I was like, "Oh, wow, this what could possibly go wrong? Come on, I'm in my 20s. I can take this guy. This is going to be fun. Let's do it. Let's figure it out." So I finished filling my car and head over to his truck. And he opens up the back of his pickup truck, and he looks at me with those bloodshot beady eyes, and he says, "You want to take a ride on the devil's penis?" And I'm thinking to myself, yep, this is how I die. I get raped at a gas station and murdered. This is going to be great. But sure enough, he takes this blanket off, and he's got this blue penis-shaped bottle with horns on it. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell is that? This is not how it's supposed to end for me. And it turned out that he was actually trying to sell me hot sauce. And apparently he makes it himself. And the little dick on the top unscrews, and there you can have your hot sauce. So I'm thinking, man, I am never going to have another opportunity in my life to buy a blue dick-shaped bottle of hot sauce from a crazy in a Louisiana gas station. So I'm going to do that. So I gave him $100, got this crazy-ass bottle. And I go back to my hotel, and a friend who's staying with me comes over, and he says, the hell is that? And I tell him the whole story, and he's like, "You sure it's hot sauce? It could be drugs or poison or something." I was like, well, it's probably not that expensive to be drugs, especially given the bottle and how expensive it must be. It might be poison, but the guy seems legit. I kind of want to believe it's hot sauce. So we start arguing, like, what should we do with it? Should we throw it away? Should we just leave it forever? Or, what are we going to do? And eventually we settle on, let's go to the Mexican restaurant that's down the street and, make us something. So we go to the Mexican restaurant. I come walking in with this blue dick-shaped bottle. And the lady at the front, she's like, "What is going on here? You're crazy, gringo." And I explained the whole situation to her. And they said, "Well, we have some chili in the back. We can bring it out, and you can put some of the hot sauce in. We can try it." I said, "Okay." So we're sitting there eating our chips and just waiting for that chili to come. The bottle's sitting there up on the desk, on the table. And eventually the manager comes out, and he has a bowl of chili for me. And I screwed the little top off, look at it, smell it. My eyes start watering. It really definitely seems like it's spicy. And I just put, a little bit of it in the chili, and we stir the chili up. And I'm looking at that chili, and I must have been looking at that chili. It seemed like 5 minutes. It was probably a lot less, but everybody, like the waiters are coming over, the manager's there. The other people in the restaurant are just kind of looking at me like, what the hell is that blue tick bottled weirdo doing? And eventually I look at my friend, and I was like, who's going to do this? Is it you or me? And he said, well, you bought the bottle. You got to do it. I'm like, yeah, that's true. I should. So I went ahead and took a little sip of the soup and the chili, and it just felt like fire was going down my entire throat, my esophagus. It was the hottest hot sauce I've ever had in my life. I could have been in rocket fuel for all I knew. But boy, I only took one bite of it, and I started sweating out uncontrollably. I was worried I had to go to the hospital or something, and I screwed the little top back on, and it took probably a full hour for me to recover. So I never had another hit of the hot sauce. I think one ride on the devil's penis was enough. And for years I had the bottle, but eventually I gave it to a friend of mine who collected hot sauce, and I kind of miss it. I wish I had it floating around somewhere because I'd be holding it while telling you the story. But that is the hottest thing I've ever had. Crazy weirdos Louisiana hot sauce at the gas station. And anyway, on that story, I wish you guys all well. This was a heck of a lot of fun, and we'll definitely have David Esser come on out like the Kraken and give you guys some good updates. And we have some cool things coming soon. So I'll talk to you all later. Cheers.